นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนิมนต์ดำเนินการครับท่านเจ้าคุณ
ว่ากล่าวอะไรนิดหน่อยไหม
ก็คงจะไม่มีอะไรกล่าวแล้วก็ thank you for the food come to speaker in the teaching on the Buddha today on behalf of the Thai Bhikhuss in U.S.A. I have to thank you for the member for all people to join us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Long Paul.
Okay, good morning and good afternoon, good evening for the people around the world. On behalf of the Council of the Thai Bhikhuss in U.S.A., I would like to thank the Most Venerable Ajahn Sona. It's the second time to come and join the Zoom meeting today. Ajahn Sona is living in the Birken, the Forest Buddhist temple, Buddhist Monastery in Vancouver, in Canada. The one time the second time already, I have visiting the Ajahn Sona. He living in a deep forest. He don't have electric. He use the power and very peaceful place. And I tell many people, if you want to learn the Dhamma, if you want to be very peaceful place, you can go to the Birken. Most of some people from Vancouver, from the Seattle, go there. It's not too far. Only 5 hour drive from the Seattle, about 5 hours. And the most venerable Plum Buddhist said that the missionary monk, I remember the one time he came to the Washington D.C. and he said that the missionary monk, he have to be, they call the house sourcing, house sourcing. That means we have to go for taking to another place, and the house reaching and building the bridge and knowledge management. And the last one, he said, the feeding the anchor chick, that mean in Thai, in Thai, that mean the ตกปลานอกบ้าน ตกปลานอกบ้าน that mean we can go to fish, take the fish from another place, and then ตกปลานอกบ้านประสาน10 ทิศผูกมิตรทั่วล่าบริหารปัญญาสาลิกาพ่อนเหยื่อI think it's very good for the missionary monk. You have to do that. That means we have to work together from the missionary monk around the world. And today, very nice to have Ajahn Sona. It's coming back one again. And the topic today is very good topic. And please welcome for Ajahn Sona together. Ajahn Sona.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So, yes, I'm glad that you mentioned the idea of a missionary monk, Venerable Ajahn Riti, and because although I'm from Canada, I am a missionary here. One of the things that the Buddha said was Buddhism, the sasana, is established in a country only when those who are from that country, who are raised in that country, are ordained in that country, that they get upasampada in that country, then the sasana has arrived. So the sasana does not arrive until we perform the ordination with people from each of these new countries, these new cultures. And then it has arrived. So I'm among the first generation to bring the sasana. So my teacher, my ordination teacher, I received Upasampada, the higher ordination in West Virginia at the Bhavana Society with Bhante Gunaratana. And so that was a very early ordination. That was in 1989. Then I went to Thailand. After a few years, I went to Thailand to, I had heard of Ajahn Chah, and I wanted to practice in the remote areas of Thailand in the forest tradition. So I went there and finished my 5th reign, my 5th pansa, before I returned to Canada. And I returned to Canada, I didn't know, when I returned to Canada, I had no idea how long or if I could stay here, because there was no support and no temples. It wasn't like I arrived and there's a big temple on every corner, and it's not like Thailand or Sri Lanka or Burma. No, there's nothing here. So you don't have anything to support you either. There's a few people from Thailand or Sri Lanka, something, that are interested in supporting a Western monk. And so they found me and I found them, and we started from nothing in the most impoverished kind of way. But now it is very, very satisfactory. There are more monasteries now throughout Canada and the United States, and there are Western monks as well, and of course many Thai monks and and Sri Lankan monks. So it's quite it's coming along very nicely now, and so this is the arrival, and to be this kind of missionary monk is in a sense you have to understand the culture you're in, and you have to understand also the Buddhism and its culture, because I'm not raised in a Buddhist culture. I have spent the last 35 years of my life in Buddhist culture, and as a Buddhist monk, I've spent 31 years now. But it's not like I was raised in this culture. So I have to actually go back and find out the whole history of Buddhism. And I have to find out about how Buddhism spread in the early days as well, because Buddhism was also had a beginning. It was a new arrival in India. And all of the original monks at the time of the Buddha were just like me. They weren't from a Buddhist culture. Venerable Sariputta, and Venerable Moggallana, and Venerable Ananda, they're not from a Buddhist culture, are they? Even the Buddha is not from a Buddhist culture. He is 34 years old when he becomes the Buddha. And before that, before he was 34 years old, he never heard of Buddhism. 35 years old. Before he was 35, he never heard of Buddhism. So he's from He's from the culture of India. So this is the way Buddhism is always a transplant into a new culture. And then after a time, the culture adopts the Buddhism and it becomes part of everything in the culture. By the way, when I said the Buddha was 34, I was actually talking about myself. I was 34 when I became a monk. The Buddha was 35. Excuse me. Little bit of cough. So my topic today, though, the talk is on the Mangala Sutta. This is a sutta called the Sutta on Great Blessings. And this is what the Dhamma, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha can bring to a culture and to the lives of individuals in the culture. The culture is if they list blessings. And I thought this was a good sutta, particularly and a good topic at this time because of the pandemic and not only the pandemic, but the panic as well. There's panic, there's economic panic, and there's domestic panic. There's difficulties within families that are cooped up together. There's worry for the future, uncertainty, political discontent as well. So actually, this is a very, very good time to decide to make this a positive experience. I remember my father telling me a story that he had smoked all his life from the age of 14 until 60. And he liked to smoke heavily every day. And when he was 60, he broke his leg and ended up in the hospital. So I decided to make a positive experience out of it. So he quit smoking. So a broken leg can turn into a positive situation. He quit smoking at 60, and now he's 92, and he's never smoked after that. So he probably wouldn't have lasted this long if he hadn't quit smoking. So he turned a broken leg into 30 years of reasonable health. This is what we can do during this time of the pandemic as well. This is a great time to cultivate some very positive things in our life that will be with us long after the pandemic is gone, long after the economic problems are gone, long after the little turmoil in your household is gone. The blessings that you establish yourself in will stay with you. So this is something that I talk about many, many times, quite often with Buddhism in the West. People from Canada and the U.S. are very interested in meditation, but there's a larger dimension of Buddhist teachings which are very beneficial. And this is primarily what this Mangala Sutta. A Mangala is a very fortunate thing. And people look for all kinds of fortunate signs. They hope, and people are not very skillful at this. They often see signs in the sky or a comet or some sort of event, an earthquake or something, a lottery number as a blessing. These are not where to look for blessings. Those are not reliable blessings. So the Buddha gives a series. He gives actually 38 blessings. And they are, the first one is not to associate with the foolish. Now, we need to look into our lives and to see, if we look back on our lives, how much aggravation and problems there were
because we fell in with the wrong people, the wrong person, or the wrong ideas. So the foolish is not just a person, but it's also ways of thinking and ideas. And you can get ideas through the television, you can get ideas through reading, you get ideas through the radio, you get ideas from listening to other people talk. And so that's one way you pick up, you can end up with wrong association. You end up associating with the foolish. And the foolish, now what is some people ask me, well, who's foolish and who's wise? How do we know what is foolish? So a fool has to do with you can know what is foolish by one's speech and by one's actions. And those speech and actions are primarily that they transgress the boundaries of good behavior, virtuous behavior. And that is summarized as the 5 precepts. If one is one who causes fear and violence to other beings, that is one who is marked by foolishness. So they do not kill and they do not injure other beings. And then, of course, they honor the property of others, the rights to property. People hold their own properties. And so they do not transgress those boundaries. They do not take what is not given. They do not appropriate possessions which are not legal or done by unskillful, greedy types of impulses. They honor the relationships of others. They don't transgress committed relationships to others. They do not practice seduction in people who are in committed relationships. Their speech is honest. They don't lie, and they don't think lying is okay, that lying is okay sometimes, or sometimes not, sometimes. Their speech is gentle and sensible and to the point. And finally, they abstain from intoxicated states of mind. And the intoxication comes through drugs and alcohol. This is a type of addiction that will have compulsion. So they use things which makes them even less capable of making good decisions and being a person that you want to be around. So that is, in brief, that's a fool. But other people say to me, well, from time to time, I do that. Am I a fool? Should I never be associated with? Here's the thing. I think we can't all be perfect in our sila all the time. Does that make us a fool? No, I think that we must be trying. We must be trying. We have decided to try. So the fool really is the person who does not regard the sila, the precepts, virtuous behavior, speech and behavior, as anything to even try. They don't regard that as worthy. But if you decide, okay, I want to commit myself to the qualities of virtue and the heart which goes behind it, if I decide then to commit myself to this, even though I fail sometimes, I am no longer a fool. I have become one who is aspiring to it, to wisdom, or aspiring to goodness. I am on the way. Now that person can be associated with and encouraged, and sometimes they can be an inspiration to you because it's very inspiring for a person who has a bad habit, such as addiction to alcohol or drugs, or they have a history of lying or even stealing, and they have decided to give that up. That's very admirable. It's much easier if you never had that, if you've never had an addiction or any of these things, then you don't have to try as hard. But the person who's had these and decides to go the other direction is quite admirable and can be inspiring. So that's the thing so the fool is one who will not make effort, does not consider it to be something worthy of doing. And so we must separate from things like that. And it may not be a person, but it may be things you listen to on the radio, things you read in books, things you indulge in media. And this has a draining effect on your mind and your energies, and it also causes confusion. So one should abstain from this to remove yourself from this. Now, sometimes it's not possible to physically remove yourself. The radio is playing in the next room. It's got some horrible kind of hate speech going on it, or some television and so forth. But you have to restrain your mind at least. When you can't get away from it, you can restrain your senses and redirect your mind. But if you can get some physical space from it, some quiet, some removal, then that's a very beautiful thing. And you will feel it. You will feel blessed. You will feel relief. You will feel lighter and freer and happier. And so that's where the Buddha starts, is that strong influence is all around us. The next blessing is to actually associate with the wise. So if you can, lots of people have never been around a wise person, and who is wise? Well, a wise person is not just somebody who has ideas. Wisdom is shown in your speech and in your actions, because you can't read other people's minds. You don't know what's in their mind. But what they say and what they do, that is who they are. So you can find somebody who is well trained in the sila, in these behaviors. They abstain from all kinds of violence and harmful threats to other beings. They are completely trustworthy with all types of property and money. If you lose your wallet, they'll make sure you get it back. They'll make sure you don't lose it. They'll protect your property. You don't have to concern yourself. They are only interested in everybody being well and happy and peaceful. So they contribute in a very positive way to that. If you have difficulties and problems and they can help, they will help. They will never take advantage of you. So this is the nature of goodness, and this is the nature of wisdom, because wisdom and goodness cannot be separated. If you're wise, you're good. If you're good, you're wise. So this is, if you find yourself in the company of a person like this, you are blessed. You will feel the blessing. And so then what happens is that you begin to admire that person and you wish to behave that way. You also now use them as an example. And that's what the Buddha meant by this word kalyanamitta, this good friend, a spiritual friend, is somebody who is well behaved, is knowledgeable, and you can learn from them. and benefit from their company. And eventually, though, you become them. This is the puzzle. The nature of humans is to, first of all, have a hero, and then to become the hero. You admire them, and then you begin to take on the traits, because it's not the person, it's not their body that you admire. It's the perfections of character. It's the qualities of character that the person has that you admire. They have generosity, they have kindness, they have patience, they have goodwill, they have self-discipline, they have all of these things. And those are not in a person. Those are universal possibilities for people. They are within you as well. And they may be in a seed form, or they may be in the flower form. But if they're in the seed form, it is by practicing and watering them that they become in the flower form. Those qualities that you see in admirable people also flower within you. So this is your gardening exercise. You look at the way admirable people behave, how they speak, and how they act, and you then emulate that, and eventually you become that. And then the last of these first few blessings is to honor the worthy ones. This actually, the word puja is used here. Puja, to really not feel self-conscious about showing respect for those who are worthy of respect. And who really is worthy of respect? Anybody who has these beautiful characteristics of virtue, of generosity, of kindness, of clarity of mind, they are worthy of you showing actual respect. And we make this anjali towards that person. We're not afraid to show that we admire that person, and we demonstrate that. Why should you do that? One thing is that the rest of the world needs to be shown that this person is worthy of emulation. Emulation means the way they act should be imitated. You also should try to behave that way. But if you don't make any gesture to them, if you don't show the world that that's worthy, then the world doesn't know. They don't know where to look. So you see Buddha images everywhere. You see Buddha statues everywhere. You know, in the time of the Buddha, there were no Buddha statues, right? And it's several centuries later that Buddha statues came into being. And the reason why, it's a good thing. The reason why is that people saw people bowing to a Buddha image or to a monk. And they thought, why are you bowing? Who is that you're bowing to? Who is that? Who's that statue represent? Who is that? Or why are you bowing to the monks? That very question, that's a teaching in itself. Who is it that deserves to be bowed to? So then they ask, well, who is it, this guy? Then they start to wonder. They hear. So that's the function of that. It's a teaching device. That you bow to somebody, that you honor somebody, then another person asks, well, why do you honor that person? So this is one of the reasons, this is the way that ordinary people just going about their business at a puja, saying out loud, I honor the Buddha, I honor the Dhamma, I honor the Sangha, doing these things, building buildings to them. What is that beautiful building there? What is that temple? You see, I can see right behind Ajahn Ritti is a very beautiful building there. And that building, it was not always there. Ajahn Ritti, with a lot of sweat over a lot of years, he gets that building built because it didn't start that way. But then people drive by and they say, hey, look at that building. That's nice. Why did they build that? Why did they build that? And why are people going there? And so forth. So that's a message to the world. That's a symbol to the world. Say, you need to openly honor those who are worthy of honor. You speak that way, you act that way, you show that way, you support one who is worthy of honor. And that's an important part of this. And when you do that, you bless your life. You have said then, ultimately, that there is something worth doing in this life. There is something worth honoring in this life. By the way, there's lots of people who don't have anything they think is worth honoring in this life. They do not regard this life as meaningful, that anybody is worth anything more than any other person. It's all just a bunch of opinions. But this is also can be a very problematic understanding, and the heart will know it. When you get on to these blessings, it shouldn't be just a matter of ideas, it should be a matter of the heart. You should feel it. It's not a blessing if you don't feel it. And if you don't feel it, then you haven't gone deep enough. So in order to get these blessings, in order for you to actually feel blessed, then you have to inquire and you have to demand. You say, the Buddha actually said these are blessings. Let me test the Buddha. The Buddha invites you always to test his teachings. He says, test them. Test them like gold. In order to know whether something's really gold or not, you put acid on it, you cut it, you shape it, and so forth. The more you do that, the more it shines. So you try these teachings out, you try to investigate these blessings, go into them, and if they go ahead, test them. You don't have to have any faith in it, just test it, and you will find that the heart begins to resonate. The heart begins to shine. So you will feel the repercussions of these things. To reside in a suitable location means a number of things. Of course, one of the things you see just in the physical world is that to reside in a very cramped, dirty, noisy, polluted place is aggravating to the mind and also to the body. And if possible, we should try to improve, because the environment helps us. We can find certain locations which are more conducive and uplifting to our minds and our hearts, that allow the activities to take place. So you see that temples are usually very quiet places. They're spacious. They have kindly people around them. And so we build these places for that purpose. You can see a public library is not noisy, is it? It's not dirty, it's not noisy, it's not chaotic, it's the opposite. And there's a reason, because when you walk into a good, beautiful public library, you feel the blessing of space, of quiet, of course, a librarian is there, quite happy to help you. Whoa, beautiful. And most libraries are free as well. Isn't that a beautiful thing? You can see in all kinds of cases, there's parks, libraries, monasteries, temples, monks, librarians, teachers, universities, all kinds of places which humans recognize these are uplifting physical environments. And we should try to find our way to these. It's unfortunately in this world, not everybody can get out of the traps of bad environments and poverty. Many people would like to, but in this life, they are condemned to that. However, if you can improve your conditions, your external conditions, bless yourself and do it. And if you can bring others along with you, bless them as well. So those people who improve the environment, improve the living conditions of people, they are blessing those people. And so this is how you can bless yourself. And if you're in any of those kind of professions that improve the conditions of life for others, then you're blessing. You're also giving them a blessing. To have done good deeds in the past. And this is an interesting blessing, because everybody has done some good deeds in the past, but quite often, and this culture doesn't know enough to think about that. So they often think only about what the bad things they've done. People think, I should just think about the bad things I've done. And that's a bad idea. You should not be thinking about the bad things you've done all the time. You should be thinking that you have done good things in this life. And you should go back and remember those things, because it cheers you up and it makes you want to do more of those good things. This particularly is important advice while you're alive, but also as people come to the end of their lives, and sometimes maybe you have to go visit them in the hospital or in the hospice. This hospice is a place where people are spending the last few days, weeks, or months of their life. And sometimes you're invited to go there, and sometimes people don't know what to say to a person in that situation. But here's one thing that you should say to them. Don't think about any bad things you've done, but think all the time about good things you've done. This lifts your heart and cheers you up, and you have done good things. Doesn't have to be anything great, but did you ever say good morning? That's a good deed. Did you say good morning once in your life? Would you like a cup of coffee? That's a good deed as well. All kinds of things. Did you ever say thank you? That's a good deed. So all kinds of little tiny things make civilization and make positive experience in people's lives. So this is something to reflect on. It raises the heart. I know it's a beautiful thing in Sri Lanka. The Sri Lanka culture, the Buddhist culture, they keep a book sometime of good deeds they've done. And they ask others to, if I've done any good deeds for you that you remember, I want to put it in my good deed book. So near the end of their life, especially in the last days of their life, they have somebody sit down and read out from the book of good deeds they've done to them. Say, yes, you were there when I was a teenager and I needed some advice. You lent me $100 one time. You gave me a lift to the airport one time. You cheered me up one time. So all these things are little contributions, very positive effects in life. So that's a very beautiful thing to understand. It's okay to remember yourself as doing good things, and very important and very uplifting. So this is an important blessing. And if you do this, indulge in those good deeds, and they can be very, very tiny, but relive them and get full benefit from them. And then you'll be inspired to actually just continue doing them. And each one will be part of your memory as well. So this is how you bless your life. And because this talk has to be a reasonable length, I will end with one more blessing. And by the way, we've only gone through 6 blessings out of 38. So you really don't want me to sit here and do all 38, do you? No. The 6th blessing here, to set oneself in the right direction. And this is one of the great blessings of life, is that, your life may not have been all that wise or good, but if you can hear something like this, and you can just begin in the right direction, you will bless yourself. Your heart will lift. I am finally walking towards my well-being and my happiness and the happiness of others in an intelligent way, and I'm being given clear instructions from the brilliance of the Buddha, because you don't have to do this, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. The wheel is already invented. And by the way, that's a very good saying, especially for Buddhists. The wheel of Dhamma has been set in motion by the Buddha. The Dhamma Chakra has been set in motion. You don't have to make a wheel of your own. There's already a wheel, and let it carry you along in the right direction. So learn and investigate it. And listen to Dhamma talks, because that is how you set yourself in the right direction. The monks get to, we live, I'm a monk now 31 years, and what I say now, after 30 years, is not what I would have said after 2 years, or 5 years, or 10 years. Each year, every 2-3 years, you get a new understanding of things. It deepens and it changes, and you understand people more, and you understand yourself more, and you understand the Dhamma more, and you have more skillful ways, and you've gone through it many times. So you can benefit by listening to Dhamma talks by senior monks, because they have had time to process this and grow this and develop this, and to know just what is really important and what to emphasize for people at different stages of their way of their path. So I will leave this for your reflection today, with to reflect on those 6 benefits. And if you only bless yourself with just those 6, you will definitely feel much better emotionally. Your mind will be clearer. Go ahead, test them out. See if it works.
John, we have a question from Tristan, who is interested
Yes.
in your advice for someone thinking about ordaining, and how to ultimately make that leap and determine the most appropriate teacher.
Yes, for one seeking ordination, you need to go to a reputable monastery that accepts people for training, and then you should spend time there. Now, if you're from and your uncle's a monk, and your brother's a monk, and your grandfather was a monk, and all this kind of stuff, it doesn't. You just go across the street to the temple and start. But if you're from American or Canadian or European culture, you don't know anything about this really. It's not familiar to you. So you need a period of gradual training and knowledge to understand what this is, what this lifestyle of being a monastic is. You need to go someplace where they will gradually bring you in and gradually acquaint you with these things. So you find a monastery that is a training monastery, and that is happy and willing to take you on as a disciple and a student, and that hopefully can teach you in your language as well. Because, in the early days, it was very difficult for Western monks. We didn't speak Thai, we didn't speak Sinhalese, didn't speak Burmese. I have to deal with the language problems and so forth. So if you can find a place where you can understand what they're saying, and they understand your cultural background as well, and then you go and see how it goes. And you might find out that it is for you, or you might find out that it isn't for you. It's not the right thing for you at this time, but this is how you begin. This is the only way you can begin. So that's advice in brief about that. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Hi, Ajahn.
Sometimes
Thank you
hard to think. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your blessings. So definitely, we hear a lot of word of wisdom from you. So one of the saying that I always remember is actually they say that arguing with a fool proves that there are two. So never argue with a fool.
Yeah.
So my question is, I was actually brought up in a culture where a lot of time people go into Buddhism because they wanted blessings or they wanted protection. So, and a lot of time, this is my personal experience. And once they go into Buddhism, they wanted protection. So, and the moment they don't get that blessings and protection, they lose faith in the religion. So, what would be your advice to lay people? Like, why do we need to go into Buddhism? What is the reason why Buddhism is a good way to actually get the blessings without having any expectations?
Yeah, well, one should understand these blessings, reliable blessings, are internal, and they go with you everywhere. So you can't, if you go to the temple hoping to win the lottery, and of course this happens. People want. Ask the monk? Maybe the monk knows the lottery number. Like then I can get a lot of money, and then I'll be happy. No. So this is the basic mistake: is people ask for external results, and then if it doesn't come up, they're disappointed. But these internal results always come up, and it's not in some other lifetime either. It's in this lifetime. These blessings are for this lifetime, and the more wholehearted you are about them, the faster they arrive. And if once you understand that the title of this talk is blessings you can give yourself. So how to bless your life. You're the one that blesses your life. The monk can help you along, the teachings can help you along, but it's only you that can bless your life. You bless your life. So if they understand this is an internal experience, if you looked for external things, you might end up disappointed. But if you look for internal blessings, you will never be disappointed. Yes.
Ajahn, I forwarded another question to you regarding, would you expand more on the idea of living in a suitable place?
Yes, I think that suitable means that it is partially to do with right association as well. If you're in with a bunch of people who are not behaving themselves, do not have considerations for your sense of need for quiet, need for peace, they can be part of the problem of the environment. One does not need a lot, a small house is fine. You don't need a big house. You need a small house, but it should be clear and clean. Even an apartment is fine, but is it one with paper thin walls and the people on all sides of you are blasting music and shouting and having fights all the time? This is a very obnoxious environment, very hard. One should have a high regard for one's life. It's your life, and you need to treasure it and to protect it. And you also, if you have family and friends, you need to treasure and protect them. So you need a safe place, a clean place, tidy place, a support. Now, different people require different support. So if you're in the family life, it's nice to have support from friendly, helpful people. But if you're a monk, sometimes you want to live alone in a little hut, a little kuti, a little cabin. You like the quiet without any people around for a while. So the two different lifestyles. If you're a meditator, maybe you want to go to the temple, to a quiet retreat, and just be away from talking and entertainment and things like this. So different environments at different times for different people are very helpful and uplifting. But we should aspire to at least clean and spacious and quiet as well is very helpful, or at least that you select the time and the type of sounds that come to you. So these are just basics for the support of the peaceful mind. Some people really benefit from nature as well, to go out into parks. So there are you may not afford this yourself, but there are parks that are free. There are libraries that are free. There are temples that are free. There are places, all kinds of free places that you can also get some relief if you're in a noisy, difficult situation. When I was a young guy going to university as well, I didn't have much money, and it was really nice to go to a park, to a library, away. There's all kinds of free places that are for this purpose. So visit these places. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn. We have another question. Does the Buddhist teaching distinguish itself from other world religions with respect to its definition of a fool?
I think so. The 5 precepts are not found in all religions, especially the last one, intoxicants. But I think most religions agree about not killing and not stealing, sexual misconduct, and lying. But, this last precept is, it's important because the weakening of your mind is why the other 4 precepts, it's very easy to break the other 4 precepts if you're intoxicated. So you see this inter relationship between drug addiction and stealing, drug addiction even in murder, drug addiction and lying. This is the killing, the stealing, the lying is not because the person wants to do that, but it's tangled up in the intoxication, in the delusion that the mind has. So all of these things are connected, and Buddhism particularly recognizes this. There are other religions that recognize intoxication as a very harmful aspect of the mind as well. So I think the core values are shared by many religions, but Buddhism is very, very clear about these things, including not killing animals as well. And many religions don't regard animal life as valuable. So they have no compunction about killing animals. They don't want to kill people, but they don't care about animals at all. The Buddha is very advanced in this. He's 2,500 years ahead of his time. We're starting to catch on to it now in the West, like starting to catch on. There are people who now understand it's not a good idea to be killing animals all the time. This is quite remarkable. The Buddha is so far ahead that we're just catching up now.
Thank you. Another question we have is, as lay people, how can we differentiate Buddhism as a way of life or a blessing? So would Buddhism be a way of life or a blessing?
Oh, yes. as lay people, it is a beautiful way of life and a blessing. But at first, you might find out that when you decide to really commit yourself to the precepts, that it's sometimes a little awkward until you get, the people around you don't follow these precepts. And then you can't be with them sometimes because they don't regard these precepts as valuable. So you may find yourself a little bit marginalized, a little bit. However, that's a good marginalization. Yeah, you find yourself a little bit on the edge of things because you decided to be good. And there's a saying by Mark Twain. He says, "Be good and you'll be lonely." Why? Why would you be lonely if you're good? Because there's not a lot of good people around. If you start insisting that you live by a certain level of sila, virtue, association with many people will not be available to you. But you don't want them anyway. You don't want to associate with fools anyway. So it's all right. At first, it's a little difficult, a little awkward, but eventually you feel the blessing of it. You're so glad you did it. You can't do it any other way. Do you want to give up your virtue just in order to socialize with others? Do you want to do that? Or do you want to stick to your virtue? So you have to make the decision. And if you make the decision and commit yourself, then you will benefit, and others will also. They also will be inspired by your example, and they'll decide, I'm also gonna be virtuous, and I don't care who approves of it or not. Yeah.
Thank you. We have another question regarding the burden of living. Those who are living with the burden of mental health problem or even taking care of a mental ill person, they don't feel as so blessed. What can you suggest, or what they should look for the blessing with this circumstance?
Just one thing is very, very good for both one taking care of one with mental illness and also for the one with mental illness, is just nothing but metta, loving kindness. And you must explain to the person who is in delusion that their protection, they feel all kinds of threatening voices and threat from the environment and self negativity that is a feature of their own mind. But you say you are to protect yourself from all of these negative things, these negative voices you hear and everything, by loving kindness. Not by argument, not by fear, but by loving kindness. It will protect you. It will protect you. It will protect you. So this goes right into inside their delusion, because that works everywhere. It works even when you're hallucinating this or whether it's real. And sometimes it's real. Like you can find yourself in a war situation where people are trying to kill you. And still the Buddha says, loving kindness, loving kindness, loving kindness is your protection. What the protection is primarily for the heart. You feel without, your fear goes down and your anger goes down. And this is the best medicine for hallucinations. This is the best medicine for delusions. And this is the best medicine for one who's taking care, because the person, the caregiver is often, they often forget that the person is crazy, and they get annoyed with them because they forget that it's just a mental illness. So this is for them, loving kindness, loving kindness, loving kindness. Inside, the caregiver, and then you show them again and again. Yes, there's evil voice talking to you, loving kindness, that's your protection. Just that. That's the only advice. The rest is too complicated. Just go with that all the time.
Thank you. Could you please talk more about the not lying precept as a blessing?
Yeah, well, people lie because they want to protect their lives, and there's complex things going on, and they don't want somebody to have a poor opinion of them, so they pretend they're somebody else, and it's a lot of work. It's too much work. The moment you decide, I'm not going to lie anymore, I don't care what, I'm not going to lie, you feel life just got simpler, actually. You don't have to decide, should I lie, should I not lie? Should I lie, should I not lie? That decision making is gone. So you made your life so much simpler. It's easy now. You feel light and you think, why didn't I think of this before? It's obvious, isn't it? And if I lose some advantages, let it be lost. I would rather not have to endlessly be in a game of deception with the rest of the world. Everybody is lying to each other. It's just too much work, too much trouble. It's not worth it. So that's the blessing.
Thank you. Would you say virtue is like dyeing your soul with beautiful colors? From Missouri.
Yeah. Yes, it's very beautiful. Virtue is represented by incense. So we put incense on the altar, and that is the smell of virtue. But virtue is even better smell than incense. It's even better than sandalwood or the blue lotus. It's better than that. So the smell of virtue travels against the wind, all the way to heaven.
Ajahn, are Buddhists considered atheists, or are Buddhists atheists?
Buddhism doesn't worry about God, doesn't concern themselves with it. So they say, the Buddha was asked one time by some other yogis, some other sect, what about God and so forth? And the Buddha said, well, look, these monks, is God good? And those monks said, yes, God is good. Well, are these monks good? So yeah, these monks are good. So then he shouldn't have any problem with them, should he? If there's a God, then he shouldn't have any problem with people being good, So why the thing about God is, and this is the big thing, is that once you stop talking about God and forget about God, everything gets simpler. Now you understand. But when you bring God into every conversation, you're talking, nobody knows about God. He's infinite. He's all this and stuff. And now things get complicated, right? There's too many complications. Get rid of don't even talk about God. Don't mention God, nothing. Suddenly life gets simpler. So goodness is present to you, and it's up to you. You do it. You're the one who is good, becomes good. Yeah.
Thank you. And one other question, is it normal to have periods of progress when practicing the Dhamma, and then some quiet periods where things are stable, but not much progress during these periods?
Yes. And not only with Dhamma, but with everything, including your music lessons, and everything. If you're learning to play the piano, sometimes you just stagnate, you can't, and then you get a little push through. All learning processes are like this. They don't go steady. They go in plateaus, and then you get a little bump up, and then plateau and a little bump up, plateau, bump up. This is all learning processes. And Dhamma is not other than a learning process. It's you learn, and but you have to practice. By the way, I used to be a music teacher. Before I was a monk, I taught music. And this is the way, and I have some students who don't practice. Well, they don't get anywhere, do they? And then some practice a lot and they get frustrated, but eventually they learn and they eventually get there, right? So this is the same with the spiritual practice. Sometimes it's not apparent that you're making progress, but we say the grass grows in the night. The grass is growing in the night. It's not known to you, but the grass is growing. And eventually you go out there, oh, the grass is growing.
We have a follow-up comment regarding Buddhism being atheist. Would you say that Buddha was more an agnostic than an atheist?
Yeah, I think he's more agnostic. He doesn't give a final, clear answer about that because he says, this is something that no one has seen this infinite God. No one has seen this. So he talks to other seekers. He says, you're talking about God all the time. Have you seen God? Have you met God? No, they haven't met him, but they're sure he's there. So he's very clever. He is not making impossible. He realizes the limits of logic. And there's two things that are very hard to prove by logic: the existence of God and the non-existence of God. People have been trying to do this since the beginning of time. They've been trying to disprove the existence of God by logic and prove the existence of God by logic. And to this day, no one has ever come up with a totally airtight, compelling argument in either direction. So what we do is just set it aside, says, get on with it. Just forget about it. You're wasting your time with that. It's never going to be, it's out of your pay grade.
Well said. Can you give some guidelines as far as simplicity and renunciation to a layperson who's retired and without immediate family duties and who has more than enough?
More than enough what?
I'm assuming time and Gene, can you unmute yourself there and ask? Oh, space, beauty, food, time, more than enough, everything.
Oh yes, well then that's very nice. Those are good conditions, but it's the Dhamma that makes it all worthwhile. So to fill that with beauty is really requires the work of the mind. So the mind, the inner mind, the garden. Lots of people who retire, they like to have gardens, but the real garden is the mind. This is the garden. You are gardening the mind. And this is called right effort. There are 4 right efforts. And the first one is to remove the weeds. And the second right effort is cover it with mulch so that it doesn't come back. And the third right effort is, if there's anything beautiful in your garden, keep it beautiful. And then ask yourself, what other beautiful things would I like in my garden? Plant those, water those, fertilize those, and then you will have a beautiful garden. But that garden is the inner garden. And people love the outer garden because they're not conscious that that represents your mind. And that's why you like it. But the garden, this is the garden. Spend your time gardening. Now you're retired. Now garden. But this garden, inside, garden the mind. Make a work of art out of your mind.
Excellent. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
I think everybody's worn out.
Everyone have enough
That's
blessings
good. I wore
now.
you out. See, I wore you out. I wore you out with Dhamma. I filled you up now. So we will we will call it a day. And I appreciate having been with you. And I see all your faces there, and I really enjoy your company. And I really have great loving kindness and best wishes for all your lives. And may you bless yourself in the midst of this pandemic.
Thank you.
Okay, there's some more. Hello, hello. Peace to you. Peace. Yeah, there's some more. Peace to all of you. Yeah, good.
Thank you.
Give me the peace sign. Give me the peace sign. Give me the Anjali. There you are. There's the peace sign. Okay. Very good.
Peace sign.
Thank you, Ajahn.
And I should say, tomorrow at 1 p.m.
Yeah.
Pacific time, there will be a talk on YouTube, and it's the last talk on what's called samadhi or jhanas. Not everybody will be interested, but there it is. It's available. Talk number 6 tomorrow.
And
Ajahn Sona's channel on YouTube. Ajahn Sona's channel on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Ajahn. A lot of questions today. It's very nice. Yeah. Thank you very much.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm good.
And 90 people today join, and it's very nice. And we're going to upload to the Facebook and to the YouTube. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Ajahn.
Excellent.
Very nice. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, we're going to pay respect to the Triple Gem one more time. Okay. หลวงพ่อ Where the หลวงพ่อยังอยู่ไหม
อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธภะคะวาพุทธังภะคะวันตังอะภิวาเทมิ สวากาโตภะคะวะโตธัมมังนัมมัสสามิ
นามาสามิ
โยปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนะมามิ
Thank you หลวงพ่อ
โอเคครับ
ขอบคุณมากครับ
Thank you very much for all for the teaching on Buddha today. It's very good for in the teaching on Buddha about the way of life to practice. Okay, thank you very much. See you on next Saturday.